Hey guys, how's it going? So, I thought I would make this video talking about the absolute state of Epic 7 RTA. And, we all have different opinions on this, but I just kind of want to lay out my feelings and go over some of the World Arena Indomitable season infographic, which was the last season. This came out like a week ago, but I just kind of wanted to talk about some of this stuff. So, they laid out a lot of the stats, like pre-bans throughout the season, first pick throughout the season, and just overall picks throughout the season. Then talked about how many people reached Legend or Emperor in all the different regions, etc., right? Just stuff like that. And at the end, they had a cool little thing saying that preparations are nearing completion for a new mode and system enhancements. So that could be really good. But I want to talk about some of the things related to this. And, I don't know, potential fixes or things that they could do. And just kind of go over how RTA has been feeling for me and maybe some other people, but definitely for me. So first of all, let's look at the pre-bans. Well, anybody who played RTA basically knows this to be true. And don't you think that maybe Lua and Conquer Lilius are a bit of a problem? And maybe Angel of Light as well. Ahmed came out in like the middle of the last season or something, and she was pretty OP. She's still really good, but I think we can all agree these top 3 units are maybe a little bit much. I think that Hua Young was probably somewhere around here in pre-ban and then later on in picks, and she was nerfed to the ground. So what's Lua doing here? Conquer Lilius, Angel of Light? Seems a little bit ridiculous to me. Now, I know that I just talked about Almond, but I know that like Belian and Zio might seem crazy to people too, but I think most people can agree that Lua, Conquer Lilius, and Angel of Light maybe some of the biggest transgressors when it comes to kind of overpowered or just insanely unfun to fight every single game. And when you start to look at some of the other stats, so Conquer Lilius is first picked in 30% of every game. And she's pre-banned in 41% of all games. So she has a large presence, and you might say like, oh, well, Lua's all the way down here. Well, that's because she's banned all the time. And then if the opponent cleaves or something, a lot of people might say, well, I'm not really going to pick Lua into this. There's no point in trying to contest because I'm not fast enough. So obviously her pick rate is a lot lower than it would be otherwise if she wasn't banned in every single game. And then when you look at this, top 20 picks all stages, so Conquer Lilius has a 45.6% pick rate. Now, I'll just round down, so 45%. So if you combine it with the amount of times that she is pre-banned, well, unless I'm crazy at math, I think you're looking at about an 86% chance that she is either banned or picked in every single match. So let's just say 86, and that means there's a 14% chance that she's not banned or picked in your game. So she's present in almost every game, basically, in some way or another. Like either somebody has to use a pre-ban on her, or she's being picked. And then look at her win rate, 52.5%. Games like League of Legends or other stuff like that, they usually nerf characters when they have that high of a win rate, and they're picked way less. This is kind of absurd to have a character that's present in so many matches have such a positive win rate. Like, if you look at some other characters that are picked all the time, like Meteor de Quirk, he's much closer to 50. That's a lot more balanced. Look at Spectre Tenebria. Look, 49.8%, and she's the most picked unit in the game, and she has a less than 50% win rate. Is she the most balanced fair character ever? Well, she can be kind of hard to deal with, but it shows that at least there's a lot more going on there, and she's a little more fair. But Conquer Lilius is barely a percent behind, and look at her. She has such a high win rate. Isn't that a little bit ridiculous? And then you might point to some other characters like Apocalypse Ravi and Karina. But here's my argument for these two characters. Do you know why their win rate is so high? Because what characters can you pick that actually survive the high aggression coming out of characters like Conquer Lilius and Lua, and who can even survive any of that, right? The only ways to survive at the moment in the game are you're a health scaler, you have evasion, you have stealth, or you just have a built-in like 30% damage reduction, something like that. If you don't have one of those things, you're basically just dead. Apocalypse Ravi is like the biggest health scaler in terms of just raw tankiness, and then Karina, well, she's a little bit different. She just has absurdly high defense, so I guess that's another method of survival. But most of the other characters can't really compete with that. You look at like Ambitious Tywin and Crimson Armin, they're just tank up characters. People are just trying to survive. Aiden actually has a decent win rate, but she's a very frustrating character people don't want to deal with. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of these characters that are currently in the game that you see here on these 3 charts, a lot of them are kind of broken, and they haven't been solved for multiple seasons at a time. Lua and Conquer Ilias have now been completely broken for multiple seasons. And Angel of Light, I would argue as well, but Angel of Light, I would say, maybe isn't as much broken as she is nobody likes the character and hates fighting them. And she gets pre-banned so much because if the opponent picks her, you suddenly lose 90% of all pickable characters in the game because you don't want to pick them into her. But what I'm saying is that these characters are incredibly frustrating to fight. They're omnipresent in all games. You're either banning them or picking them almost all the time. The reason why Conquer Ilias is picked so much is often because people don't want to fight her, so they feel forced to pick her. And you see that so much, and Smilegate makes characters to try and deal with them, but they don't. You have characters like Celine and Politis and Benimaru, Moon Bunny. Those characters are developed to try and beat this kind of stuff. So, like, let's ignore Politis and Celine maybe, because they were older. But if we think about Benimaru and Moon Bunny, do you ever see those characters versus Conquer Ilias outside of, like, Guild War Arena? No, you never see that, because they're bad. So, Conquer Ilias is just completely uncontested. If you have a character that punishes extra turns, well, she doesn't take her extra turn. If you have a character that punishes dual attacks, well, then she doesn't use her dual attack until her next rotation. If you have a character that punishes non-attack skills, well, then she just does her dual attack. So you have to pick multiple units just to lock down this one character that is picked all the time, and she still has a positive win rate. So clearly something isn't working. And here's another problem. If you add a character that actually like hard counters Conquer Ilias, let's say they punish extra turns and non-attack skills and dual attacks or some combination, right? Well, that character is also going to counter a large majority of all characters in the entire game, right? If you have a character that punishes non-attack skills and dual attacks, it's like, okay, well, that could be a huge punishment to so many people's teams, or, you know, anything like that. Same with Lua. How do you make a character that counters Lua, but doesn't just counter, like, 90% of all supports in the entire game, or fast units, or something like that? We're kind of at a ridiculous point where these characters have so far outscaled other characters, and they've been just uncontested for so long. Like, they made that Lilius buff and the Mort artifact for Lua, right? But most Lua players just don't care. Or they use the Song of Stars artifact, which actually counters that that tech where she's able to put target debuff on Lilius so that she stays asleep and then she can't cleanse or anything like that. So there's so many problems, I would say, with the entire landscape of RTA right now, just with there's so many characters that are completely broken that nobody likes to fight, and Smilegate can't find counters to them. So what's the solution? Well, the hard pill to swallow would be they should nerf them, but obviously a lot of people aren't gonna like that. I mean, I own all these characters that they have on this list, and I'm totally fine with them nerfing them if they're completely broken, but I understand, you know, maybe you pulled Conquer Ilias or Angel of Light recently, or like you don't really have much else that feels really bad. Yeah, that's a huge problem, right? But at the same time, how are they gonna fix the health of the game in some ways? Now, here's some other solutions. Well, what if they had like a rotating ban thing, maybe for an entire season, certain characters like these are banned or something like that? That's another possibility. And then I would say the third thing is you basically power creep by making characters that actually are able to counter them and deal with them, but that's a whole nother can of worms on its own. So I think Smilegate's kind of backed themselves into a difficult corner here at this point. It's really hard for them to actually get themselves out of this. There's just a lot of problems in RTA, and I don't speak for everyone, but I think a lot of people are feeling kind of fatigued. There was an infographic put out that a guy does at the end of every single season, and this was the least amount of players we've had in RTA for, like, I think years. Now, you could attribute it to Honkai Starvo came out, or like maybe people didn't want the Coeric skin or something like that, but the point still remains that a lot of people just did not care at all about playing RTA. And if you look at the picks for the previous season, let me go find this really quickly. Yeah, like, look at this. You're still seeing Conquer Ilias picked all the time. Lua is obviously not as much on here if you scroll to this thing. This is, oh wait, that's first picks, sorry. Lua is also still always pre-banned. Belian had more probably for cleavers. Honka Lilius is still pre-ban all the time, Angel Light is still pre-ban all the time, and the season before that was much the same. People for multiple seasons are like, I don't want to fight Conquer Lilius, I don't want to fight Lua, I don't want to fight Angel Light, and they're still just in every single game. And I'll also hear people say like, oh man, there's so much unit variety in this meta or something, but then the person's team will be like Emo Lilius, Emo Cleric, Angel of Light, and then like 2 other characters. One of the DPS will be like Spectre Tenebra, and then their last pick is like, I don't know, Celine, and they're like, oh, look at the variety or something, and then the opponent bans Celine because it countered their team, and it's like, okay, well. I mean, it's like, that's kind of how it usually ends up, right? Is you're only probably picking 1 to 2 units that aren't like insane, super strong meta characters, and then one of them is usually banned because whatever the opponent's team is, that character is especially good against it, and so then you're left with like 1, right? So I guess what I'm kind of saying is that I think Smallgate really needs to do something. I laid out kind of the most common possibilities of adding some sort of either nerfing the characters or adding some sort of ban, either maybe monthly or an entire season ban on certain characters or something like that in RTA, or I guess power creeping. I can't really think of many other solutions, and I don't think Smallgate really can either, but I think people are feeling very fatigued with RTA. Some people have actually been quitting the game recently, but you know, that always happens. People will quit, people will join, etc. That's not too strange. But I think that Smallgate really needs to start finding a solution, because it's starting to get a little bit stale. And people have been like, there's no content, etc., etc. Like, RTA is boring, you know. And this fatigue just keeps continuing, and I hope that soon they could actually come to a conclusion. I just kind of wanted to talk about this because I think that I'm feeling this fatigue hard right now. Like, so much. Every day when I'm playing RTA, I'm just like, oh my god, it's the same thing. It's the same units. And now 60 to 70% of my matches are a guy first picking Zio or first picking Aiden and then picking Zio on their next pick rotation and then doing the same cleave over and over. I think because people are just tired of doing with Lua, Conquer, Lilius, and they always pre-ban Angel of Light. So that's kind of just the game right now, and I hope that we can start seeing some interesting things, because some of the characters coming out, like MLK and ML Rwana, well, they're not really solving anything. They're just kind of whatever. And it's cool to have new characters, but unless that new character is something insane, I don't really see the meta changing. Anyways, just wanted to talk about this. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.